Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Alright, so let me check my volume. Always check your volume. Hope everyone is doing okay this morning. I'm going to get a slate of shows out, so I'm probably going to be with you most, if not all, of the day. At least up until the afternoon. So let's have a 420. I only need to be moderately lucid. For the day. I don't have much planned. So I want to talk about Space Force. I even like the way it sounds, Space Force. Now, I don't like what it means. I don't necessarily even like linguistically the way it comes across. It sounds hilarious to some degree. Trump comes out saying it's going to be separate but equal, which rubs me a particular way. I told my wife, she said the same thing. It rubs her a particular way. I would imagine African Americans have a particular context of hearing that term separate but equal. We know it to be bogus and nonsense. This kind of apartheid-ish thought. But he applied it to a branch of the military, which made it all the more weird when he said it. This is going to be a 420. This is a blaze one if you got one. Because I want to put forth a conspiracy theory. And I'm going to make an argument for this conspiracy theory. Not because I think it's what it is, but because I question, is it possible? Is it possible? And I use a 420 because I kind of want people to exist outside of the immediate no. For the moment, exist within the conspiracy theory. And rip yourself out of the context afterwards when you recoil at what it would mean if it was true. I brought my crew for this one. Space Force. Sounds so fucking weird. But whatever. Space Force. Like a television show. I don't like the term because it's implying force into space. And I ask, is that really the perspective that you want to take out into the cosmos? Has it served us well here on this planet? I would argue that the answer is no. But whatever. Space Force. Why is Donald Trump all of a sudden deciding that he needs to have some kind of dominance of space? We need to dominate the space. Why does he all of a sudden feel the need to do that? That he needs to shake his fists to the heavens like he's, screaming at God or something. That just seems weird. It seems odd to all of a sudden just come up with this out of the blue. Why on earth is he coming up with this out of the blue? Now, you can say China, those fucking Chinese, and those goddamn Ruskies with their Sputnik satellites. You may say that. That may be true. I mean, China was having missiles that could shoot down satellites. So fair enough. But what if that's not it? What if that's somewhat of a convenient answer? A convenient answer that you reach for because the only context that you're using for that answer is domestic and international affairs. What if there's a politics that go a little bit beyond the politics to which we are seeing and we're aware of? Let me move this over. I don't mean to touch Spock inappropriately, but he's kind of in my way. This. Just so we can recount what Donald Trump said here. I want to get his words right. President Donald Trump used the term for the United States segregationist history to describe the relationship between the Air Force and his newest military branch, Space Force, calling it separate but equal. We must have American dominance in space. Very importantly, I'm hereby directing the Department of Defense and the Pentagon to immediately begin the process of necessary to establish the Space Force as the sixth branch of the armed forces. That's a big step. He said in the White House East Room during a meeting of his National Space Council Monday. We're going to have the Air Force and we're going to have the Space Force. Separate but equal is going to be something so important. So important. Why does Donald Trump need a separate but equal? Like, why does he need a force in space? And why now? What has changed all of a sudden where Donald Trump has all of a sudden felt the need? Oh my God! We need military in space. Is it possible? Is it possible, to any degree that's possible, that Donald Trump has been briefed? And he's been briefed on something that the public itself hasn't necessarily been briefed on, but has been leaked information about. I'm postulating that for this conspiracy theory. All right, here, New York Times. Big splashy headline. Glowing ores and black money, the Pentagon's mysterious UFO program. This was somewhat of a leak. This wasn't random, and this doesn't come out of the blue. Many of the people who were talking about this acted as if all of a sudden this story just kind of popped into the consciousness of the editors of the New York Times and all this other stuff. This story was released in the New York Times, Politico, Washington Post, all at, for the most part, the exact same time. CNN, Fox News, the Young Turks, all of these guys ran this story at around about the right same time. The reports that came out that have been released from the Nimitz, they covered these stories. They covered these stories as real stories. The pilots who were on the Nimitz, who were following the object that was in space. And for those who don't know, the Nimitz is this, it was a craft that the military essentially was following. You essentially had military aircraft in the sky flying around this particular object, observing this object, with a ship on the ground tracking this object on radar. The pilots who were part of this particular process came out into the media talking about it. Elizondo came out to the media, talked about it, immediately joins Tom DeLonge's team that's investigating this stuff, Academy to the Stars. I'm asking, is it possible that Donald Trump has been briefed? Another story. Politico. The Pentagon's secret search for UFOs. Now, the amount of money that they're talking about in this budget is minor, but the point is not that the budget is minor. The point is that the budget was revealed at all. In the UFO community, it had been known for up to 2 years prior that this story was going to come out. When Hillary Clinton lost the election, it changed. It changed. They assumed that she was going to win and that there was going to be this kind of, I guess you could say, pressure on the outside, allowing for changes on the inside. Well, she lost. So the story came out, but this came out to a White House that wasn't necessarily completely responsive. And yet, the stories keep coming out. I-Team exclusive confidential report analyzes Tic Tac UFO incidents. Now, this story goes into, and I'm not going to read it because I've done this one before, but it makes the point that there are two reports for this particular incident. One report would never, ever be exposed to the public. They said that thing is buried and locked down in perpetuity forever. The other report was the report that was released, and it was released to, essentially, Academy to the Stars. Somebody from the Pentagon leaked the report. The report made the point of invisibility, intense speeds, stuff that was well beyond the capabilities of our U.S. military. And I'm reading this from the point of a straight person. Not straight person from saying of sexuality, but from the person of somebody who's looks at the news as being the main story without any subtext. That this is just the way things are. This is reports that are coming from mainstream news sources. Invisibility, this capacity of speed and everything else. The pilots observed it. The Pentagon wrote it down. The people were trying to expose this to other people who were in the media and in the Pentagon, but many people weren't receptive to this because they didn't necessarily like to deal with the connotations of what they were seeing. You had some people with religious beliefs, and those religious beliefs kind of like, oh my God, those are demons. You had other people who didn't necessarily know how to place it. You had other people who were just more embarrassed by the story that they encountered this in the first place. So they buried the report. There's some elements who are saying we need to know what is in our airspace. We need to know what this is. Is it possible that these stories, and there are plenty more, by the way, I-Team, Politico, this is New York Times, I can show one in Washington Post, I can show one from CNN, I can show one from MSNBC, I can show one from the Young Turks. Is it possible? To any degree that's possible, that these stories somehow, some way, made it across Donald Trump's desk, and that maybe Donald Trump was told something, whispered in his ear, and he said, "Oh my God, we need a Space Force." Now, would that be the reaction of a reality show host if they're told that something is invading their space or invading our skies that we don't know what it is? Is that possible? Not so much that they would come out and say this is what it is, but that they would come out and say we need to get control of our airwaves and we need to know what's invading our space. Understand the context that they've been using this, meaning there's an element, whether you want to say in the Pentagon or whether you want to say in the political class, that wants this information out. And Academy to the Stars is a somewhat of a leverage to try to create a political pressure to do it. The videotapes that were leaked were done so in order to give a certain amount of confirmation to the public itself, and to get the media to talk about it in real terms, seeing as the goal was to try to get this more out into the open. This is just my hypothesis on the way to break it down. I don't necessarily think that everybody's on board with it, but I do think some are on board with it, and I think the way they're trying to get this out is through military. I welcome somebody to come on the show to debate Tom DeLonge, meaning him being a positive actor in this. I don't know if that's true. The reason I say that is many times the argument they're using is just under this idea of threat detection. Something is invading our space. We need to do something about it. Something we don't know what it is. We need to figure out what this is, meaning we need to spend money on this to figure out what this is. Now, Tom DeLonge is talking about building a rocket ship. They're not building that rocket ship using $1 million of investment. They're going to have to get something a little bit more than just this kind of pity-ante money that people are putting into it. The angle that they're using is defense. If you get across that something is coming through our space and something is invading our space, whether it's hostile or not, it's kind of besides the point. You have a bunch of reactionaries, even on stuff that's on this planet, let alone you tell a reality show host that there may be something that's invading our stars or invading our space and we don't know what it is. What is the reaction of a reality show host in this? What is the reaction of a reality show host? They're using the context of threat. Tom DeLonge was surrounded by a bunch of spooks and a bunch of military personnel. And while I totally respect and appreciate this thing of pulling this issue into the mainstream, because these articles and everything else in many respects came because of what Tom DeLonge was doing, I do have to look around at why. Who do you have around you? And what is the context to which is being perpetrated or persisted in order to crowbar this into the main light? It seems the context is military. Is it possible, to any degree that's possible, that one of these articles, one of the people who were instrumental in putting this stuff out, one of the elements that were potentially trying to get this out, got something across to Trump? Something across his desk, some letter, some note, some pad that somebody whispered in his ear that he just so happened stumbled upon an article when he was stumbling out of a brothel in Las Vegas. Did he see something that got across that there's something invading our stars or invading our space? A similar argument that was made essentially from the Academy to the Stars people, at least in these interviews. And we need to figure out what it is. How much money is Donald Trump going to throw at this particular project? How much money? And what are the technologies that they're going to try to create for this? I've told you before, I'm somewhat terrified by what may come out of this. You have a bunch of terrified people who are now spending money on technologies of something flying in our space. And they're saying there's something in our stars, in our skies, that we don't know what it is, and we need to start spending a bunch of money on it. How do we know? How do we know? Yes, I've gotten somewhat cynical of this process because I don't necessarily like where this particular process is going. Ultimately, you tell somebody that you give confirmation, and then on top of giving confirmation, the context and the language of all of this is threat. And now you have the president of the United States saying that he's going to start a space force. Is it possible, to any degree that's possible, that something got across Donald Trump's desk? And this is Donald Trump's response. That's my conspiracy theory. That's what I'm going with. Yes, you could say China and everything else, but I'm putting that out there and I'm asking the question. Jamal, I want to know who he's going to hold hostage to get the funding to the Space Force stuff. And no one asks where the money is coming from. Pat Hacker, nobody asks where the money is coming from at all. It never came up. Never came up. And what is it going to be used on? Like Space Force in what context? What are you using the money on? What are you using the money on? Well, I'm saying more people should do stargazing. It's a great stress reliever. Yes, it is. I agree. We live in an intergalactic zoo and we are animals. We are animals, just as a flat fact, yes. Launching our tax dollars into space tax haven. Jeremy Shellman. Yes. The Communist Space Federation only lets planets join that have ascended to world communism. At the very least, that are not murdering and killing each other like animals, yes. The Pentagon can literally print their own money, civil disobedience. And you know what's wild about that, civil? You're right. You're completely right. I mean, when they had a $5 trillion deficit last year, 2015, the year before last, nobody said squat. Nobody cared. Money acquisition, no issue. It's amazing. It's completely amazing. They also plan on challenging the warfare ban. Yeah, they are. And again, that's terrifying. Like, this is getting into terrifying areas. I suspect that they did see something on the Nimitz. I believe it. I don't doubt it. What is it being used for is a different question. Those are very different conversations. Yes, we saw something. Is it hostile? No. Well, it didn't seem hostile. It could have blown them out of the sky at any time. And what are they using this for from a propaganda standpoint? What is the money that they're trying to throw into something? What are the projects that they're going to try to use? And like Gardner said, this challenging of the space band. Imagine for the moment if you have a satellite floating through space that has a laser on it that can beam a beam down to essentially decimate areas of the globe. I'm trying to make this point to you that our technology has advanced to terrifying ways. And if we're talking about putting weapons in space that could potentially kill people that are on the ground, we are getting into terrifying phenomena. Especially if the language they're using is, maybe there's something in space that we need to knock out and we need to protect ourselves. Because I would almost guarantee you that is going to eventually be used on us. This is a terrifying area that we're going into. Lasers are against the rules of war at the moment. Adore Pariah. You honestly believe they're rules of war? Do you also believe that there is international law? International law rules. That stuff only applies if you can inflict some penalty on the person who's breaking a quote-unquote rule. The United States has broken all sorts of treaties and everything else. We don't care. I mean, Donald Trump just pulled out of an international agreement. Blew it off. Same thing with the Paris Accords. Blew it off. He's blowing the stuff off left and right. They're terrified in Europe that he's going to break the World Trade Organization. Like, that stuff only applies to countries when they agree. The moment that countries stop agreeing, that stuff goes away. If Donald Trump decides he wants to have weapons in space, what are the other powers going to do to stop him? The answer is nothing. Nothing at all. It's purely done by consent. The moment that you stop giving your consent and you spend $1 trillion on your military, you're going to tell those other countries to fuck off. This is a terrifying phenomena. He must be trying to implement Martian law. Martian law. This is international law. It's just largely ignored. That's my point, Garden. Like, it's But international law is often largely ignored. Like, for example, at which point does the international law stop Israel from stealing land? It doesn't. It doesn't. Did it stop the United States from destroying Iraq? It did not. It did not. I'm making a point that it doesn't exist equally for all of these other countries. Yes, you would drag somebody else before the Hague, but if the United States is torturing people, not so much. International law is by consent, especially from the stronger countries. Putin has spaceships. We have spaceships. Adopariah tells them not to, and you would hope history and society still sees it. Look, I agree that it's something that you can use to hit people with. I'm just making the point that on multiple occasions, we've completely blown it off. International law, we haven't cared. Mikey Mike, the Russian bot, international law, like regular laws, is for the little people. Yes, that's my point. Space Force talk worries me, yes. What for? How completely do you need to dominate the planet? Or if it's some off-planet threat? Well, this is why I'm bringing this up. With all the stuff that you've been seeing in the news, why wouldn't you believe that it's possible that Donald Trump has also seen it? And that his reaction to this, as a reality show host, is, oh my God, we need a Space Force. I don't think that's insane. I don't think that's insane. Adore Pariah, true, but they exist for good reason and are established. No, Adored, look, I guess what I'm saying is, look, laws don't exist at all, period. None of that stuff exists. Those things are human conceptions. You, sitting in a room, are not bound by anything else. You're just sitting in a room. Even though there's certain laws from a societal standpoint that we put on, but those things are agreed upon, and those things are something that people have to agree upon to follow. The moment that I stop agreeing that that law is a law, well, if you are not powerful enough to kind of beat me, imprison me, or make me subjugate, then is it really a law? Is it really a law? The moment that we say we are not bound by those laws, then those stop becoming laws, especially if the larger area to which is trying to establish it can't enforce it. It's not real. That's what I'm saying. There's no real thing that's a law. Those things are mental figments. They're legal fictions of sorts. I hope that makes sense. I'm trying to make this point that the moment that a stronger country disagrees, how do you make that stronger country submit? And if you can't make it submit, then that law doesn't apply. It's just an opinion at that point, and you can blow off opinions. No way we could do anything against aliens. Their technology would be thousands of years in front of us. Look, if they have the capacity to get here, then yeah, it doesn't matter. Damien, I've been thinking the same thing. Trump won't leave office voluntarily ever. We don't know that. I mean, in 2 years, when he get his ass handed to him by Bernie Sanders, he'll leave office. Adoprai, I know what you mean, man. I'm just telling you that current state, one example, lasers specifically are considered a war crime to use right now. No, that's fair enough. That's fair. That's fair. I don't see the difference. Well, and wait a minute, we do use lasers. I mean, part of our missile defense system uses lasers. Airplanes flying in the air with lasers to knock down rockets. Maybe you're saying use lasers on human beings. Is that what you mean? Civil disobedience. Half of the Make America Magna Carta was for protection of the commons. Nobody ever talks about that law anymore. Holy cannabis law. Yeah. So it's depleted uranium. Yeah. There's that. Yeah. I feel you, man. I am skeptical that those laws would stop countries from doing certain things. That's all. But I feel you. The laws are there. The laws are there. We'd be breaking international space treaties. It's possible that Trump is already going to break international space treaties. I mean, think about what he's saying. Space Force. I'm just saying, man. It sounds like there's going to be breaking some treaties in regards to weaponizing space. If you're talking about a space force, if I'm not mistaken, it is illegal to weaponize space based on the treaties that we've signed. And if he's talking about a space force, is that going to break those treaties? Is he just saying, let's blow these treaties off? This is kind of my point. Space force, implicit in that, is that we are militarizing space. Just saying. Set phasers to max. Set phasers to max. Data lore. The moon will be the 51st state. The entire moon. The entire moon. Kingston Patriot. What? We created a world that we're in new space, okay? Spartan Guard. Americans' military strategy is technically based on full spectrum dominance. Yeah, space is included in that full spectrum dominance. I imagine when China knocked that satellite out of the sky with the missile, it made some people wake up. Like, what the fuck? They were able to knock down missiles. Yes, people aren't wasting their money on military. They're using it judiciously to find ways that they can defend themselves. So what did you think? Trump is a giant moron. There is no way NASA let him know about anything going on in space. What do you mean NASA? You can look at the media. Look at this. These are news stories. New York Times, Politico. This is Las Vegas. I'm joking that he's stumbling out of a brothel, but I'm saying these are mainstream news stories. And if, as I postulate, that these stories were released in a world that Clinton was, well, I'm sorry, the original, look, this was originally supposed to come out earlier. That's why this whole thing, like the releasing of these stories to some degree, is contrived. This was expected out earlier. When Hillary Clinton lost, it pushed back the time that this was being released. There seem to be elements that want this out. Otherwise, this would not have been leaked. The stuff that was leaked to the Las Vegas Times would not have been leaked from the Pentagon if some element didn't want this out. It's not the thing that NASA let Trump in on a secret. I'm asking, is it possible that Trump got a hold of some of this, or somebody got a hold of him, and the only thing you had to say is, Trump, look at the Washington Post, look at Politico, look at New York Times, and they would have to give it to him on flashcards, and they would have to do it in song and dance, and they would have to read it to him while he's in his footy pajamas. But at the very least, at some point it clicks, and he takes his thumb out of his mouth and he says, holy shit, they're aliens, and we need to fight the aliens. So we need a space force. We need a space force. That's what I thought happened. That's what I think happened. So that's what I think took place. We are going to hollow out Earth till it's actually flat. What? Look at Clemente. We should allow Richard Spencer to start his white ethno state on Venus. I think Venus is a little hot, but I feel you. I feel you. Who's going to pay for him to get there? I'm not putting my tax dollars into that fucking rocket ship. Not on my dime. Hell no. Are you asking, is it possible that Space Force is there to combat aliens? No, I'm saying, is it possible that Donald Trump, somebody got a hold of Trump and said, look, something is out there, we don't know what's in our space, in our skies. The same argument that Tom DeLonge and his crew has been using. And Donald Trump says, oh my God, we need a space force. We need something in space. I am asking, is it possible? I will make the point that it is absolutely possible. Is it true? No clue. No clue. I call it a conspiracy theory for a reason. But is it possible? Hell yeah. With all of this information that's been swirling about with the UFO stuff and the stuff that the Pentagon has been studying, and knowing that the Pentagon has leaked the stuff, yes, of course it's possible. But is it true? That's a different question. That's a completely different question. Trump lands on the sun, tweets, best tan ever. Best tan ever. To combat. Well, the thing is, Garden, my concern in this, like I said before, my concern in this is the disposition that we're taking is, and the disposition that's being used as a crowbar to kind of get the topic out in the open from the standpoint of having military and the political class talk about it, is there's something out there And it is against our military preparedness that we don't try to figure out what this is. This is literally the argument that was being used. It is against our military preparedness if we don't expose what's invading our skies. Threat detection, all this other stuff. If this was positioned to Trump in that way, would you get Space Force? Like, would a reality shows react to that with something like this? Meaning, is there information that Trump might have gotten that we aren't privy to? Because this is so goddamn random. This is extremely random. And if I am not mistaken, weapons in space breaks treaties. Why now? Why now? But again, this is conspiracy theory. There's no way for me to know. Alright, so I'm going to end this here. I didn't want this one to go too long, and 30 minutes is not too bad for chat with the audience. Look, guys, thank you for joining me with this 420. Look, I love my 420s. I always say blaze one if you got one, because I like these type of subjects. This channel is for the most part just me, and I figured the shit that I think about and I talk about and I'm interested in follows. Not to mention, the moment that this hit the news, it was fair game. So, or mainstream news, it became fair game. It's funny, I've become more skeptical of it, if that makes sense. And it's weird. It's not so much that I'm skeptical of something that took place. I'm also skeptical of how it's being spun. Those are somewhat different. It's like, if the information is being leaked, it's being leaked for a reason. It's not being leaked for shits and giggles. Somebody wants it out. I don't trust how we've organized ourselves, nor do I trust the incentives that people use. And I think getting a topic like this out at all costs is too much. Like, there's a cost that I think is too much to get the topic out. If this is a threat and we need to spend more money into some stupid fucking military program, then yeah, I don't want the topic out from that context, because you've become more military, or you've militarized yourself in a topic that I would prefer to be more of one of science. I want to understand it, not blow it out the air. Those are different conversations. It seems the conversations we're having, it is blow the shit out the air. We need more military. That's disconcerting to me, to say the least. So yeah, good job, Tom DeLonge, getting it out. Boo on whoever is contorting it into this way. I'll leave it there. Alright, guys, if you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the Patreon. Thanks, everyone.